Ayato, should you summon for him? Well, that's a difficult question, but one I will try to answer today in this video. And so, if you, like myself, have been wondering whether or not to get this Hydro Sword user, then stick around and let me tell you a few reasons why this character might become your next main. So first up is his kit. So I've spoken briefly about this in the last video I did about Ayato, but let's talk about it once again. So his kit is amazing, so much damage potential, as firstly his elemental skill will have a nice backwards dash alongside a pretty cool taunt mechanic, but the main thing will have Ayato enter the Sokai Kanka state that will have him rapidly attack the enemy, gaining wave flash stacks, increasing his damage dealt. And so firstly, the taunt part of this is pretty decent. Now it doesn't last long and it will explode when damaged, but can be nice to reposition. But it's the Sokai Kanka state thingy that's really good. So the rapidly attacking enemy part will require him to be on the field, meaning you won't be able to switch characters during this if you want to get the maximum damage, which is a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. As someone who's gonna be building him as a main DPS, this is just fine. Now the actual damage does seem decent, especially considering these wave flash stacks will increase in damage the more HP Ayato has, meaning focusing on HP will not only make him more tanky, but increases damage as well. Overall, this skill looks really good. The only sort of downside to this is that again, he has to be on the field for the duration of it to make full use of it. But now what about his burst? Well, this is where Ayato really shines and probably is what makes Ayato Ayato. This burst not only looks amazing, but is amazing. So it will have Ayato create a zone in which rain swords will rain down on the enemy, and so this is good for two reasons. Firstly, obviously, is the consistent damage in this zone. But the second and more important part of this is the Hydro application. So reactions are a big part of Genshin, and having abilities that continuously apply a certain element are usually very good. And so having a zone that deals damage and applies the Hydro element sounds really good. Now we'll still have to see how long this is, the duration of the burst, to get a good grasp of how good it will be. But just from first impressions, this will be amazing, especially if you pair him up with a pyro character, say Xinling, who like Ayato can continuously deal pyro damage with a burst. The damage you can get will be so good. And so overall his kit is looking amazing, with great damaging abilities but also great Hydro application. But now next we have the second reason why Ayato is a must summon, and that is his drip, or design in other words. So the design of a character is very important. If you don't like the way the character is designed, then why would you play them? So Ayato is the head of the Kamisato clan, which is the same clan Ayaka is from, and being the leader, he is known to be a polite, humble man, expert in not only swordsmanship, but also various types of elemental magic. He sort of reminds me of that one guy from Samurai Champloo, who was very trained and noble, especially with the way he fights, which is another notable thing about him, is the way he fights, especially when compared to Ayaka, who, while is of the same clan, seems much more sort of rough in the way she fights compared to Ayato. You could also say he's very fluid with his movement. Another great thing about him is he's a Hydro character, which is something that is somewhat rare, as while we did get Kokomi, other than her there hasn't been many Hydro characters that have gotten released since the initial release of the game, with only Child coming to mind, and the element being a personal favourite of mine, being featured in many of my teams due to its access to very powerful reactions like Vaporize or Freeze. And so if you are thinking of running such a comp, Ayato could be the perfect addition. But now one final question you may be wondering is what role Ayato will play in a party. Well, judging from his kit, he will be played as a main DPS, which is great news, as I personally have been wanting to play another Hydro main DPS for quite some time, as the only other one I can think of is Child, who I never really got into. Now that's not to say he isn't that good, he is pretty good. As I remember when it was released, there were a ton of videos on YouTube of him him hitting crazy numbers with his burst, but since then has fallen off a bit. So hopefully Ayato will be the premier Hydro main DPS. But now, can he be played elsewhere? Well, he doesn't offer too much else other than damage, but his burst does offer an increase in attack speed to allies inside of this, so this is pretty good. The main characters that will find use of this is firstly physical damage dealers, as they rely on their attacks, and secondly people who buff their own attacks like Yoimiya, as well as the fact that again his Hydro application is amazing and could be a great asset to many pyro carries. But now those are some of the main reasons why I think Ayato will be the next big pickup for many players in Genshin Impact. Personally, I'm definitely going to be trying to get him, as I haven't picked up a new character in a fair bit, been mainly going for constellations and weapons and such, and so hopefully I manage to get him when he comes out. How about you guys? Will you summon for Ayato when he comes out? If you do, I wish you all the best in your summons and hope you get Ayato. But now, as always, I hope you enjoy this video and I will see you next time.